Two presentations into a feedback panel for CDP and UBC on the research. So the presentations of Sara from Lahti and Per from Malmö will be, the messages will be delivered or discussed through a panel setting with Shirin from CDP and Björn from UBC. So a little change. And then we have still Council of Baltic Sea States in the end and the youth conclusion in the end. But now we start with one more city. We take Tartu, climate smart Tartu and Raimuntam, and may I ask you to do it in 10 minutes?
Okay,
I may ask, thank you, I have asked.
So good morning, really glad to be here and share our experiences from Tartu. So in Tartu we have done a lot of things during the last 20 years. And today I will concentrate more on specific activities, not so much on strategies, because strategies, way or the other, are quite similar to each other. So I think it will be more interesting to hear about concrete activities. So just a few facts to remember about Tartu. We are the second largest city in Estonia. We were first mentioned in written sources already almost 1,000 years ago. So we have a long history. We have around 100,000 inhabitants living in Tartu. We just had a reform which made municipalities to be united. So then we also had a smaller municipality, let's say, connected to Tartu. And now we are about 100,000 inhabitants. And we are a traditional university city. We have one of the eldest universities in the region, which was established in 1632 by the King of Sweden. So we have a very colorful history. We have had different powers in Estonia, etc. So just to point out which are the biggest challenges for our city. As you see, we are from the Nordic region. The heating energy is actually the main energy source and main part of energy consumption. It makes up to 53% of all energy consumption. And electricity makes up 27% of the overall energy consumption. And transportation is about 20%. But if you have a look on the environmental impact, the situation is different, because as our heating is a lot based on renewable energy, it has not too much impact on environment. It's just 19% of the CO2 emissions. But at the same time, as electricity is still not mainly from renewables in our city, it's making up 68% of the CO2 emissions. And transportation is around 12%. So that's giving you, let's say, the basics, what we have to fight for. And in case of energy consumption, of course, we have to deal with the buildings. But in case of environmental impact, we have to deal with transportation, for example, or with electricity consumption. And in Tartu, we are, let's say, seeing it as integrated approach. We have smartness in different areas, starting from buildings, energy production, but not only, also the community and people to raise awareness, what is important, and how they can change the world with their behavior and habits. We are also speaking about, of course, smart infrastructures, public infrastructures, and then smart mobility. So just to bring some examples, in case of buildings, the city has to be the pioneer and show the way. So whatever new building we have in the city planned, we will definitely take the environmental impact and energy consumption into consideration. Here you have two examples. One is kindergarten, which was opened this year in September, so it's a very new one. It doesn't have the church tower, it's just a church nearby. I really like the photos. And the second one is the harbor building, and it was also finished a few years ago. But Tartu is a river city. We have 10 kilometers of river inside of the city, so we have to keep the city alive and the river alive. And then also in private sector, people are more and more realizing that they have to do and decrease energy consumption, and then also stay for the environmental impact. So we have office buildings, apartment buildings, different, which are already designed at a really low energy consumption level. And in a Nordic country, it's not so easy to have passive houses, and it's even not economically reasonable to have passive houses. But it's reasonable to have low energy consumption buildings. Tartu is also participating in a huge project as a lighthouse city. Maybe you have heard about those smart cities and communities initiatives, which are under the Horizon 2020 program. And then Tartu is together with Danish city Sonderborg and Spanish city Vitoria, which is the capital city of Basque. We are in the lighthouse project, and we have to deal with low energy district, also with sustainable urban mobility issues, and then also public infrastructures, integrated infrastructures. And then we have to replicate, of course, all the results to other cities in Estonia, in Europe, and maybe further. And one of those challenges let's say, in this project is also the Soviet Union period buildings. We have brick buildings, so-called Khrushchevkas, which we are trying to make smartovkas. So let's see how successful we will be. But basically, yes, energy consumption in those buildings is very high right now. It's 270 kilowatt hours per square meter annually. I don't know how familiar you are with the numbers, but it's a very high level. So, and what we are trying to do, we are trying to retrofit 22 apartment buildings down to 90 kilowatt hours per square meter annually. It means that the energy consumption will be reduced by 3 times in those buildings. And all those red buildings, what you can see here on the map, are those buildings which I'm speaking about. Our target group was a little bit larger, but we have, let's say, co-financing possibility for 22 buildings, not for all of those. And we are also planning to integrate a smart home solution into those buildings, not only to have the energy retrofitting, but to have something extra. We will have, at the apartment level, different sensors and different information gathering. We will also have at the building level, and then all the information will be available for people to understand what their consumption means, what they are consuming actually, how much they are consuming, etc. So I think it's a great case, and normally if we have smart home solutions, it's only in case of new buildings right now in Estonia, not in case of retrofitted buildings. So to speak about sustainable mobility, that's an electric taxi from Tartu. We have about 30 electric taxis in Tartu, and one of the activities in the frame of the Smart and City project, it's also to reuse the batteries of those electric cars. Because if an electric taxi is driving like 75,000 kilometers every year, it means that after 4 or 5 years, the battery is not anymore enough to run the car, but it's still possible to gather renewable energy into the battery. So we are trying to reuse those electric car batteries. And in Estonia, we have extensive public network for electric car charging. So we also have 11 public chargers in Tartu. Basically the infrastructure is already existing. We also have 2 electric car rental points in our city, and as I told, 30 electric taxis. It's actually based on green electricity, so if we are speaking about electric transportation, we are speaking also about consuming of green electricity. We recently had a new procurement for the public transportation, and it was stated that 100% it should be based on gas buses. We have received proposals, and the new operator will start in July 2019. So it basically means that they have some time to prepare, but the contract will be signed very soon. So we hope that Tartu will be let's say, city with more clean air within the city in the future. And we also have the intention to have biogas available. Currently it's not actually possible in Estonia because we don't have biogas resources exploited as they maybe could be. And we are hoping to have biogas available, but not at the moment.
Please go conclude in 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes, I don't have too many. So also renovation and the construction of bicycle roads it's one of the key tasks, and we have the intention to start operation of bike sharing system in 2019. All the preparations have been basically made. The procurement will be issued quite soon. We intend to have 800 bikes in 80 stations. Also, we are dealing with street lighting. Street lighting is a great energy robber. We are consuming about 7.5 gigawatt hours of electricity for street lighting, and as one of the activities in the Smart and City project, we will also replace the lamps on the pilot area, but we will also have extensive sensor network. So as you see here on the photo, it's possible to include sensors in the street lighting network, and it will be a very comfortable way to gather information from environment, for example. So that's a graphic how we will decrease energy consumption in street lighting by 2024. Also, district heating, it's based on renewable energy, but we still have the possibility to decrease the loss of heat energy in case of distribution, but everything is okay with district heating. I think we were the first one in Estonia to introduce district cooling system. So it's actually very efficient because it's saving 70% of the emissions at the end of the day. So it's a remarkable step for Tartu. And we are also using river water for the cooling purposes. We also have biogas production at our local waterworks company. So we are producing biogas out of sewage sludge. And also biogas production based on the closed landfill, which is nearby Tartu. So it's actually quite high amount, like 500 cubic meters per hour of biogas, which is coming out of the landfill. So it's a great example again. And it's like creation of puzzle. You have to put piece by piece, and then at the end of the day, you will have the picture what we would like to see. So we are somewhere in the middle, so we have to go still a long way. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Raimond, for the interesting presentation, and I would like to congratulate you for some successes of the city of Tartu. For instance, you are a role model in increasing the share of renewables in the energy system, and I understand that you have an extensive district heating network, and now you're producing it. Is it all renewable already? Or?
Only at the peak times, it's using natural gas also, but as I showed, 90% is based on renewables.
Yeah. So that's really an achievement. And then you have 30 e-taxis. I think we have 4 or 5 in Turku. So we have to come and learn from you, and also the fast charging stations. And the whole approach, how you are integrating the climate actions and the smart city strategy is quite impressive, I think. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? No? Have they reported?
You are welcome to Tartu. We will explain more in detail what we are doing. So if you have not had the possibility to visit.
There's one question from...
Well, I was thinking about the taxi company, because they're private companies. Do you support them in buying in these e-cars, electric cars, or they're just committed?
Yeah, we actually had a measure at the state level which supported the purchase of electric cars, but we are not supporting it at the municipal level.
And how are you measuring and following on the greenhouse gas emissions and climate policies? What kind of reporting systems you have?
Yes, actually our reporting system is based on Covenant of Mayors activities, let's say, so we are reporting as much as needed in frame of
Okay. And have they been included in the CDP? Yes, you have reported to CDP. Thank you for that. Yeah. It's very helpful that you did that, because by doing that, and by many cities reporting, you enable us to gather information from UBC member cities, draw analysis from that, and also to compare and benchmark with other parts of the world. And that's actually what the next presentation is all about. So I'm welcoming, thanks Simon, thank you very much. And now I'm welcoming Sirin Relvers from CDP and Björn Grönholm from UBC. And they will present the cooperation and joint work of CDP and of the UBC for climate reporting in Baltic Sea region and beyond also. So please take the floor, and you are welcome to use some time, and then we will have a panel with the two of you and with two cities after your presentation. So please take the floor.
Perfect, thank you very much, and good morning everyone. I'm really motivated by hearing from all the actions that Tartu is taking. It's really fascinating. And I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what a lot of cities in the UBC network, but also beyond, are doing in terms of measuring their emissions. Very quickly, as per introduction, what CDP is, for those of you who do not know. In a nutshell, very simply, CDP is a reporting platform, so a tool for cities and companies and investors to use. It's a platform where cities can log onto and measure their emissions, report on a number of different factors that I would present. This is actually from last year. There's been a growth in all the numbers, but you can just see that it's really a global network. It has quite a widespread, and there's really a great way of learning from each other and basing a lot of the actions that Tartu and other cities are taking on existing data. So our theory of change, the reason why we existed is because we believe that you can't manage what you don't measure. So without knowing where you are, you will never be able to know where you want to go, and you will not be able to track your progress against the goal. I know that from UBC member cities, more than 70% have a climate change action plan. And they are all committed to implement it over the years to come, but in order to know where you are on that track to achieving the goals you have set out in the climate action plan, you need to measure, and with these we believe you need to measure every year where you are when you make the progress. So how are we doing this? We are really, really pleased to cooperate with UBC, and I'm really thankful to be here today, and thankful to Björn and Anna and many of the other colleagues across the UBC network. UBC is reaching out to the cities every year to invite them to report to CPP. Actually, we started the cooperation last year, and we already have 20 UBC cities reporting to us, which is fascinating, and we're hoping to scale that number up over the years to come. The way it works is your city, the city receives the invitation, you collect the necessary data. I will say a few more words about it in a minute. We support you with all the tools that we have available, from webinars to a lot of online data tools. And then you can use our disclosure platform, which basically is a tool, an online tool. You log in, you report the data. You can work with other city departments to do that. And then we help you submit the data. We look at it, we clean it, we ask you questions if something isn't quite clear. And then finally, we have the final data set. We share that with our partners at UBC. And Björn, I'm sure you're going to say a few more words, but today is actually the day that we are launching a small report. And you will also see kind of the performance online. As Mr. was saying, you are able to benchmark yourself. You see what other cities are doing. Really, really quickly, just to let you know that we are asking a number of questions in terms of mitigation, adaptation. We're asking how the governance structure is in your city, what are the risks that you see from climate change, but also what are the opportunities. Of course, a few kind of very data-specific questions, your strategy, and then also some information regarding to water. And the city of Tartu has just said it. We are working with our partners at the Global Covenant, which is becoming an ever bigger network of cities, and it's 40 for the very big major cities. So all of them are using our platform, our tool for cities to report. So again, going back to the theory of change, we think that by disclosing, you are getting aware, you're understanding where the emissions are coming from, what are the risks you're seeing, you're engaging with different city departments. So becoming aware, that leads to management, and ultimately that leads to leadership, which we have a lot of in the UBC network, which is really great to see. And I know that cities globally will be able to benefit from your expertise and your experience. So again, very quickly, I think I've said all of this already. by reporting, you engage with different departments, with different agencies, very often with businesses and with the investors in your city and beyond. You are able to track and benchmark, compile all the data in one place, knowing kind of where you are, and then engaging with your peers through UBC, through events like this today, through reports like the one we're going to launch today, and yeah, through our platform. Of course, by doing so, you're also joining a global network, and I think in particular in this case, knowing that a lot of the cities in the UBC network are really on top of the curve, a lot of other cities will benefit, as I said before. Go through this really quickly. There's an opportunity to receive feedback. Every city gets that, just knowing where you are, how you're doing, how you can improve, and there's also a tool where you can log online to see how you're doing in comparison to other cities that have the same economic activity or the same size. All of this is free. All of this can be used by any city of any size, and all the data is being made public unless you request it to be privately, and available on our network. So just really quickly, and this is a good example of how you should never work at night. There's not 3 Helsinkis, there's only 1. This is my mistake, I'm sorry. So this is just an example of how you can see your performance, how you can see how other cities are doing within the UBC network, or if you want to go further than, for example, in the whole of the EU, or maybe you want to have a look on worldwide performance, but you can see in this example how your community-wide emission reduction targets are comparing to others. Are you setting long enough targets? Are you setting targets that are ambitious enough? What could you do? And then you can also see, as we've just heard from Tadrik, of the activities that they are taking. And as I said before, you can explore all this data on our platform. Have a look. It's global. We have now more than 570 cities reporting, so that's a nice way kind of to seeing what's happening out there in the world. I think I mentioned most of it. One thing I wanted to mention really quickly is climate finance, because I know that's a barrier for a lot of cities in implementing the projects that they have planned. And by disclosing your information, you basically enter a global market space of actors, including investors. They're going to look at what is your ambition, is it worthwhile investing in the city, and there's a way of scaling projects up. Very often a single city project is not necessarily attractive for an investor because it's not a big enough investment opportunity. But by entering your information, there's a matching where we can see, okay, there's 10 cities that want to do LED lighting, and that then is a scaled up, big enough opportunity for investors. So just another reason kind of to making your information public, because you're taking all these great actions, but surely every one of us can do with a bit of support. And I'm rushing through this really quickly. Just an example, like we really see that disclosure works in the sense of what you measure and you manage. Every year that cities report to us, they are increasing their ambition, they are able to set new targets and new activities and start new projects by engaging with actors in this space. And of course, we're inviting all cities to join the movement. It's been incredible to see over the last 6 years how many cities are already reporting their data. We're now, as I said, more than 570 globally, and with other networks such as the Global Covenant, C40, many others, I think it will increase very much over the course of time. Thank you, and I'm really glad to hand over to Björn.
Finally, I've been quiet the whole morning. Really difficult. But yeah, really happy to be here. In 2015, we actually had a discussion, strategic discussion, our advisory board of our commission, that how should we proceed with our sustainability work, and in particular with the climate work. And one of the things that we actually came up with is that we need to raise the ambition. We need to be not familiar among ourselves in UBC, in the Baltic Sea region and so on. So we need to go on. We need to build more on attraction. We need to find carrots for the mayors in order to continue with the work and lift the ambition. And this was then as part of our sustainability action program, we had intention to be known globally. And then one of the ways, or one of the tools for doing this was to find strategic partnership, and this is what we found with CDP. And today we launched the report on Baltic Euroregion climate leadership. And one part of our sustainability action program is to bring up these smart climate Baltic cities. And we know also that we are good in a lot of tasks, but we are really poor in actually communicating. We are too humble too often and so on. But some small figures, you have the address here. Anyway, it's long. If you go to our Commission's homepage, you find everything. These are just, it's not meant that you should read it or even be able to read it, but these are the screenshots from the report. So we will talk about the whole reporting process from our side, give the introduction, and we are actually just halfway now. This is the first report after 1 year of operation. We have intention to at least to continue with 1 year, and if it works for both parties, we will continue. We have in the report, we have gone from 6 reporting UBC cities to 20 in 1 year. And then we know that there are quite a few among us also here in the room that are actually reporting, but not to CDP. They are almost close with the report, and they could be in the report next year. We also know that there are cities that do incredible good work back home, but haven't still come up with the idea or time or resources to do the reporting. And as Shirin said, this is really important. Sometimes it's good for investors to find these cooperation patterns and know exactly where you are. But we are happy after 1 year. We also know what and how we could do let's say the contacting with UBC member cities even better, so we look forward to next year. For us, it's been really interesting to see what cities have been reporting in our region and globally. And you can see among both on the global level as in the Baltic Sea level that totally different cities reporting, which means that size doesn't matter. You don't need to be big, rich, famous, strong and beautiful. You can be everything anyway. Well, you can be small and beautiful, smart and great, and so on. So, and this I think is really important because quite often we are faced with the fact that, okay, we know that, well, the Swedish cities report, the British cities report, and so on, but we don't have a tradition, or we are not good enough. The question is not to be good enough, the question is to benchmark, compare, and be better. What we also are really happy with, that from our Baltic Sea region, we have reporting cities from all countries. From Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Poland, to the Baltic stage, and even Russia. And when we started with this, we had a lot of comments that forget Russia, forget some other states and so on, but we are really happy that these cities in these countries actually are reported. And I think that this is kind of a, well, really important signal for all of us. And then also if you look at these, well, cities with really ambitious long-term targets on being carbon neutral, we have quite a few of our cities from this region. And this is encouraging. And then, well, being around here, we know that there are also cities that after they report, they actually should be on this list too, in this region. So there is a hidden potential still. But then, what is good, that I think that most of our cities, I think it was listed, or Shirin who said that, are on the way, have taken really ambitious goals, have targets, and are trying to do it. But the part where we still are on the way is the implementation. So there we have compared to quite a few cities globally. We have the political decisions and strategies and so on. We know what we should do. but actually starting the implementation, the concrete work is still perhaps where we are a little bit behind. We haven't done any deep analysis on this, but I think that there might be that we have this hidden, with the infrastructure on the east and west element of the Baltic Sea region, this might be one of the reasons that let's say the start is a little bit slower. But we will continue with this. We will analyze the data more. We have the launch of the report here. We will continue with reporting CDP in COP23 in Bonn after some weeks, 3 weeks. And after that, we will just continue and communicate with it among our cities. For us, this is a really good tool. It is a good tool for giving identity to the Baltic Sea region, to our cities, and actually to bring up the work with solutions and problems and challenges in the region. What is good with this reporting tool is that they also bring up the opportunities. Now we went through these questions a little bit more in detail, and we know that when we talk about climate change, our region is famous for being a region with high-level education and with a lot of clean tech. So the region has a huge potential when it comes to clean tech development for our region, but also global. And this is a good, perhaps, third signal from this report for this. Yeah, there is a lot of additional information from CDP, from UBC, as part of our strategic framework or partnership. And then you have a report then published. Of course, we should not have it in paper, but you have it on your laptops, you have it on your mobile phones. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And please both stay on the podium. We will have a panel and we will have questions and discussions. Are there questions or comments from the audience at this point? I would actually like to invite Krista Campus from the Council of Baltic Sea States to comment on this study and please come here. Yeah. So you said that in your presentation earlier today, you said that it's our common vision in the region now that Baltic Sea region should be the first truly sustainable development in the region. Now that you look at the graphs and the outcomes of the study, perhaps we are on a good way, at least with regard to climate.
It's a good question. Unfortunately, I haven't read that study yet, so it's hard to comment, but as I'm also coordinating climate activities in the frame of the Baltic Sea strategy, then actually I found that kind of reporting extremely useful because it provides very good overview where the cities are when it comes to implementing also EU climate and energy targets and objectives. And we have collaborating very closely with DG Climate and Adaptation Unit and DG Energy as well. And what is very often what is asked is good examples. Good examples, good practice, good projects. So I think that report provides that information, which is, I think, missing. So I definitely think that is very, very good tool when it comes to reporting how cities are working with climate issues. And I was actually very happy that that report also, at least to some extent, covers adaptation, not only mitigation part. And this is, I think, very good approach because I think we have to focus more on adaptation and provide good examples from both and to monitor where we are in both in adaptation and mitigation as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Would you like to reflect back to CBSS?
Maybe just a quick remark that we on our website, I'm sure you will see this similar things, but we collect case studies for others to learn. So if your city, we've just had great presentation, I'm sure we'll have many more during these days. So if your city has something to tell to others, do please reach out, let us know, because as you said, it's like really good examples, how have you financed it, how have you done it, what was the implementation process, and really honestly, what were the barriers, what was difficult, because that is where cities can learn from each other the most, I think.
Sirin, what is your geographic area of responsibility? You are head for cities, manager for a large area.
Yeah, for me it's Europe, Middle East and Africa, which is quite big, but there's equivalents of me, probably better, in Asia, North America and in Latin America. So we really do cover kind of globally, and what you say is true, because adaptation for some areas is even more important than mitigation, but you know, here in Europe we need to think about both, because there's always consequences, and you can't have, and I think we discussed this previously, you can't have mitigation projects that don't take into account the adaptation measures, otherwise you fail.
Yes, please.
And just one comment as well, that we have a flagship process, not project, under Baltic Sea Strategy, under HA Climate, which is called Climate Dialogue Platform. And one part of that platform is also to monitoring the progress when it comes to implementation of climate objectives and goals. This is very much focusing on cooperation with the countries, with the governments, and I think that report provides very good overview also for the governments, and that will also help how they are working and implementing their national strategies.
I have a question to Björn. Please pass on the mic, and you are welcome to stay. The Baltic cities, you said that they perform quite well in mitigation, but not so well perhaps on adaptation. How well do they perform in mitigation compared to cities in other parts of the world, and how badly do they perform in adaptation?
This is always tricky to say, and so that, as I said, we haven't gone really through these in details. It's been too short time for analysis, but it might also be, let's say, a part of being a little bit too humble with the adaptation, also that we don't get it in. But still, I think when it comes to change the infrastructure and so on, this is a question of let's say, when this has been built, the age of it and circle and so on. So the adaptation is, I need to go through another thing, and that we haven't had actually time to go through the other regions and their adaptation parts and so on. So it's too early for me to say. When it comes to mitigation, I think that here we have a tradition to go on, be quite fast in taking on and trying to be the front runner in the region. So I think that here we have a tradition to be good, but still we have huge differences among the cities in the region, and among cities in big cities in every country, and then small cities. So I think we have a very diverse situation here, and we need to communicate this much. But I think that the good thing is that with these examples, good examples, and the curves of being seen globally, I think we can speed up a lot.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for Krista for this invited comment. Other comments or questions from the audience? Yes, please. Come to the front so we get you on the streaming as well. Please present yourself to the camera and then, yeah.
Hello everybody. I'm Niels Peter Moore. I'm head of strategic planning in Aarhus, and I'm also the chairman of the Planning Cities Commission at the UBC network. And I would like to address all the speakers actually, because we heard a lot about national and regional and activities, registration, good examples, and I agree very much with Mia from Karlstad that what is really changing the world is when we act locally, and we do through our city planning and our engagement of citizens, we can change the world. But in the same time, I think we are like closing our eyes, because there are some crooks out there who are acting globally. And do we have a list of them? Do we know, for instance, the Danish national energy company, DONG, sold some shares, and suddenly Goldman Sachs earned 3 billion euro in 4 years, taking money out of energy supply from Danish users. Do we know why the rich gets richer? Do we know why the distance gets bigger between poor and rich, and why some people owns everything and somebody don't? We have these 7 goals, and the first one,
17.
The
UN is 17.
And some of them are about poverty and education, very fundamental things, but there are somebody out there who are working against all these things, who are earning money working against this. So it's nice we collect good examples, but do we also have a register of all these groups?
Oh, now you pose, please stay. Now you pose quite a challenge to the UBC. But we don't have that register at the UBC, I'm sure of that. However, the topic you raised is important, and it is a responsibility for those investors, those wealthy, and those companies actually to be transparent and to implement principles of good corporate social responsibility. And I invite Sirin to reflect on this with regards to reporting and disclosure.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Today, actually, we're launching our company report, which is an overview of more than 6,600 companies and what they are doing on climate change. And it is indeed all about transparency, and it's all about being accountable, to consumers as much as to investors. And I think it's a very good question. It's never black and white. There's a lot of I think there's generally a lot of movement towards responsible investment. There's more pressure than we had before. A lot of investors, big investors, are aligning their portfolios with the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a good movement. There's big organizations, both on in the private sector and in the public sector, which are moving away from oil or fossil fuel investment as well towards green energy. And of course, the economic case for it is helping, right? It's good that solar panels are getting cheaper. It's very helpful that there's really an economic benefit from climate action. But I agree, transparency is at the heart of it. It's really encouraging to see that so many companies are reporting what they're doing and their emissions, their operations, their water management, to some extent also how they cause deforestation. But then the question is, what do you do with that information, right? And that's where we need to increase the pressure on investors, on consumers, to make the right choices based on the information that is out there.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for Niels.
Yeah.
You want to respond still? Okay,
of course.
Briefly, please.
I make it a little bit black and white, and of course we are simple people. We can only behave, and we can show the good example. But I can see that the human nature, we don't want to be used in somebody else's game, and that's why maybe we have to be a little bit more tough. Maybe we have to go a little bit further in demanding transparency, fighting tax on the Cayman Islands or where they put all this money. So we have to fight these guys because they are working against us, and they are actually exploiting our labor and our good ideas. And this profit we should put into our good agenda. And there I think we should be more tough.
And as Union of the Baltic Cities, united, we stand and march forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Thank you for this comment and discussion. And then we are inviting on the stage 2 cities that have reported and that have actually prepared the presentation, each of them, but this presentation will be a little bit concise into 2-minute speeches. Now, apologies for that, but still a very warm welcome to Saara Varamo from Lahti and Per-Arne Nilsson from Malmö. Please come up. And yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah. And Saara has prepared a presentation on climate smart Lahti, and Per-Arne has prepared a presentation on the UBC cities and also regarding adaptation. And now we will go forward with a panel format. but first I invite both of you to give us a summary of your presentation, your key messages, points, and reflections in 2 minutes, please.
Okay, that was a surprise. Hello, I work as the environmental director for the city of Lahti, and of course I have a good group also behind me there in Lahti. I was planning to tell a couple of practical points that our investment projects for the climate smart city, but actually I would really like to point out the importance of participatory processes. And we are currently right now actually taking the city master plan and the sustainable urban mobility plan, and we want to sort of build a completely new model how to at the same time look at the urban structures and the mobility issues. And then we also have a quite large EU-funded project called CityCap, which we want to implement a carbon trade model scheme for all our local inhabitants. So it's a carbon trading for mobility for residents, and that's something quite unique, and we really would like to invite new ideas how you can actually participate, and we would like to also share this information when we'll progress. But in a very short, these are the key messages that I wanted to bring here.
Thank you. A cap and trade system for the citizens. That's innovative. We'll come back to that. Then over to Per, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm head of environmental strategies in the city of Malmö. And my presentation was about climate adaptation, and the main message I think is I think there's a need for more cooperation about climate adaptation and resilience in the Baltic Sea area. In Malmö we have a lot of need connected to higher sea level, storms, cloudbursts. We are doing a lot of work on the cloudburst program at the moment, and thinking about more innovative solutions. Also more innovative solutions connected to have this green and dense, sustainable city, and we think we can connect that with the global goals, working with climate adaptation. It's not just costs, it's also something that could give more values to the city in the future. So we try to work with that in a more innovative way. We have, for example, a national test bed on blue-green solutions in the city of Malmö, where we try to find new solutions. And it should be very interesting to solve the experiences about these issues with other cities around the Baltic Sea.
Thank you. You highlighted the important point of adaptation, and in the UPC CDP survey, one of the results there is that whereas in mitigation our cities are much more likely to have ambitious goals and action plans as compared to cities in other parts of the world, in adaptation planning and goal setting and integration of adaptation into their strategies, there is activity, but less than in other parts of the world. Maybe maybe adaptation is not so much considered an acute issue in our region, but perhaps we are a little bit we may be a bit wrong about that. Yeah, would you like to comment further on that? How did you realize that adaptation needs action in Malmö? I mean, in the 90s and still in 2000, you actually built a large new area very close to sea level, 2 meters, or?
Yes.
Are you regretting that now?
We realized it the hard way, I should say. We had a very heavy rain at the same way that Copenhagen did the year before us, because they had a very heavy rain in Copenhagen, and that costed them, I don't know, billions of kroner. And they started to have this cloudburst program in Copenhagen. the year after we had a similar rain in Malmö that made a lot of damage. So we had to do it. A year later we had another weather accident with that we didn't realize that it could happen in that way, because that was a not so hard storm, but it was locally it was like 2 meters.
Rainfall?
No, 2 meters sea level rising in the middle of the city. So
okay.
if it had been just some more centimeters, it should have flooded our brand new metro system, for example, and that would be a major catastrophe. So sometimes things happen not the way we think they are doing, but now we realize that we have to think more about this issue. We have to do a lot of things, but we, at the same time, it's important to do it the right way, so we don't make new problems when we try to solve one problem.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Please pass on to Shiri.
Thank you very much.
Did this story from Malmö about the rainfall, did it ring a bell? Did it sound familiar from any other parts of the world?
I actually, yes, definitely, especially nowadays. I think the US is learning it the hard way these days. But I think there's 2 elements to adaptation. One is, indeed, it hasn't been a focus yet for a lot of Northern European countries. It's much more on the forefront of thinking, say, in Africa and in developing countries. But the other thing is also, I think it's probably underreported, because the way we think about adaptation isn't always as clear-cut. So, for example, from the private sector, they don't know what adaptation means. They understand what resilience means. So there's a kind of a bit of a difference. And often then, even when they decide to build, say, a factory on a different point, it's not because they think, oh, we need to adapt, but they think, okay, it's slightly, you know, it's a changing climate. So that it's really difficult to make this switch of what is adaptation and what isn't. And I think that's the reason why it's underreported in the UBC region. But still, I think we need an increased focus on adaptation as in terms of dialogue and learning from each other.
Yeah, over to Sarah, please. Yeah.
If you think about the reporting, like we were one of the cities that reported to the CDP, for the adaptation it's much more qualitative indicators, and it's much more difficult actually to compare between cities, and those measures that are important, they differ quite a lot if you're a coastal city or inland city. And I think it's sort of, we should look at the bigger picture, like the readiness of the cities for the adaptation overall, and then also the social dynamics will step to the play much more than to the mitigation issues.
That was a great point, thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience to Shirin, Björn, Sara or Per? Anybody like to share anything more? Okay, then for conclusion, for this panel, I have a question for you, but please comment first.
Just a comment, if you think that you lost something with the presentations, you didn't, because they are already in your email box, so the presentations.
Okay. A question to you, Björn. Rainfall, unexpected heavy weather events are part of the picture of the changing climate, and also very much so for our region. Yesterday there was the launch of the Smart Water Hub for Baltic Sea region, and in the survey, in most cases, UBC cities link the risks related to climate change. They link them very often to water topics. Will the new water hub assist the cities in addressing the water-related climate risks, and how?
Yes, well, we have this Baltic Sea region water hub established, and we will look at wastewater, storm waters, freshwater, drinking waters, and then, well, coastal waters and so on. And yes, the issue of storm waters is growing in the region, and we have realized it already, so we are operating already with practical projects and so on, where we try to feed into the water hub. But I really would say that actually during the last 2 years, the topic of stormwaters have been exploding. People start to identify the problems with it and they start to have a kind of profile of it. Some of our cities have been flooding every year in spring, but we start to have floods in summer, in autumn, and even during winter time. So this is totally different patterns that we have now. And we also know that this is not only influencing our wet fields, but the infrastructures, electricity, security, and civil protection. And these are actually part of the process where we actually are trying now to increase our focus on energy. So the stormwater, whatever it is related to that in our cities.
Okay, thank you. And then the cap and trade for citizens. In 2 sentences. And, yeah.
Could I possibly show the last slide of mine?
Please do.
Yeah, it's going to be a new trial completely, and we know that the carbon trading model for citizens have been studied mainly in Britain, but no other cities that at least we found have been testing it for real, and we're going to do it in 2019. But actually I would like to make a point here that if you are really enthusiastic mobility planner or ICT person, we are looking for those kind of experts right now. So are you ready to try new? Our project will offer something which is completely unique challenge to build a new scheme, and also we really need your expertise in there. So if you got interested, this will be of course we will first build a new model, do it in a participatory way, co-designing it together with citizens and companies this year, and then do a trial period in 2019. So are you ready to work with us? Please contact me.
Are you ready? Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for all the panelists and hearing on them. And yes, the adaptation, resilience issues and the risks of climate change were discussed by the panel, and they are also highlighted in the new report, and they've been identified as a field where our cities and our union need to put a little bit more emphasis on and develop new activities. And therefore, it's our pleasure to invite Mr. Jacek Paczkowski from the Permanent International Secretariat of the Council of the Baltic Sea States to present the Climate and Civil Protection Initiative. You're very welcome. Please come here and take the floor. And Björn, might you assist us a bit? We need to check if his presentation is here. Okay. He has just sent it by email. Yeah, 20 minutes ago. So it's probably in the last one. Yeah. And then still, after Jacek, we will have the summary and comments from the youth representatives. Toivo, where are you? There is Toivo. And there's the group of the youth who have been following the session and who have been perhaps a bit quiet so far, but they will have a message in the end, and they will tell us how to move forward, what is the way for a good future, right? Yeah, he's nodding. We have it? Okay, please, take the floor.
Let me start by thanking UBC for inviting us here to the local level, or the reality as we call it, for us to operate mostly at the macro-regional level. It's a far way down. I have already learned that I'm going to try to be brief and concise, otherwise the moderator will drag me off stage. And I also have the pleasure of giving this presentation just before lunch. So I know you're all hungry, we can all smell the food. But was really good the way that you ended the conversation of what kind of needs we have in this region regarding to climate-related risks and how we can cooperate around this. I will give you a short presentation about an initiative that has been driven mainly by CBSS in their capacities as coordinators for the European Union strategy for the Baltic Sea region in partnership with Union of Baltic Cities, the Safe Cities Commission and the Sustainable Cities Commission. But I think this is a natural starting point. How many here have heard about the UN Sendai framework? A few brave souls. This is a UN initiative that already addresses some of the issues that were discussed at the end of the previous panel debate. And the whole idea with the framework is to reduce the risks to begin with. So this is the whole setup of the Sendai framework, as you can see, to reduce mortality, affected people by global population, but then we're coming in aspects that are also relevant primarily in our region, and there's economic loss, it's increased international cooperation, availability and access to multi-hazard early warning systems and disaster risk information as assessments. There are several priorities in this framework. Of course, number one is to understanding risk and understanding disaster risk in the region. Because then you can strengthen the governance on how to manage it. This one. So the big shift in the region is, and also on a global scale, is that we're moving from managing disasters to managing risks. And what does this mean? Previously, there has been a lot of focus put and resources and efforts to come up with effective mechanism on how to cope with a disaster. Is it a flooding, earthquake? How do you recover from that disaster? But the new approach is starting much earlier. How can we already build smart? How can we plan so when these accidents happen, that we already are prepared and are not affected to the same extent? And this is, of course, very, very connected with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and, of course, with climate change. So the background for the initiative I'm going to talk about is that we had discussions with our colleagues that are coordinating horizontal action climate. And then we decided that looking at what we do and what they do, we discovered that there are some gaps in this, and that how we could be useful for each other, these two sectors. And the sector I represent is the civil protection side. So it's all those working with, at national level with risk assessments, fire services, and so on. How can we cooperate? And we managed to secure funding from the sponsor, the Swedish Institute, who was kindly willing to support this initiative. And we invited a group of stakeholders in this region with the aim to connect risk assessment, including a civil security perspective, and also to how to accomplish proactive work focusing on climate change. At the end, we're hoping to increase the urban resilience. So what was the challenge? That we have stakeholders at the local level working with climate change adaptation, already today trying to look into the future and how this will affect the societies. But this work is also being done at the national level within the civil protection sphere. And what keeps and what unites us is and how we could combine these two is exactly under the UN Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So what we decided is that the first stepping stone is to develop a risk assessment methodology, combining the experience from the national level and making it work with the experiences at the local level. And this is the partnership. As you can see, all levels of governance are represented in this, including national, macro, regional, and academia, and the local level. And we have been quite selective of getting the right partners into this, because sometimes, as you know, when you do whatever project you do, you want to have a huge outreach. And this is, we thought that we would combine the networks that CBSS has in this area and combine it with the networks that UBC has and that outreach. And I think it has been very successful so far. What's new in this initiative is that normally when you do a project, you do what you want to do during the project, and you develop a handbook, a recommendation, but we included a new component to this, and that is basically a whole work package dedicated to policy dialogue. That when this initiative starts, we're gonna talk, both UBC and CBSS, gonna lobby and inform about this and what we need to do from day one to ensure ownership for this and other initiatives like this one. So because we want to avoid, because we all know that we are very good at producing manual, handbooks, recommendations. Not just in this region, but also in the EU. But I mean, and we are at least trying to take this a step further. And the experience we have from other initiatives, that this has to start already from the beginning in initiative. It's very dangerous to wait until the final meeting, and then you start and say that, okay, who are we going to contact? Because then it's too late. But it is also an ambition of including even those who are not directly part of this initiative, to include them, to keep them informed of what is going on, so they're at least aware of what is happening, and also ask for their contributions, mainly by providing different kind of information, so they will be ready. And this initiative, the lead partner will be the Union of the Baltic Cities, which is the natural lead partner for this, because I mean the ownership for this is at the local level, because it is the cities that are facing these risks. There are no floods at the national level. All floods, earthquakes, they take place at the local level. Yeah, so this is basically a longer presentation made very short. Just, I hear many stomachs already making sounds, so thank you very much.
Thank you. No. Thank you so much for this interesting project and initiative, where I understood that two of the commissions of the UBC will play an important role and contribute. Is anyone present involved yet in this initiative, or is your city? How will cities get involved in when? Björn?
I mean, what you want to?
Yeah.
So
we will invite the cities to different workshops and training and so on. That's one part. Then also with the policy recommendations and the policy discussions and the dialogues, we will then also invite the cities. So as usually in projects like this, there is a limited number of parties who can be involved. But now we have UBC as a city network, so we include we are the Safe City Commission, and then from Sustainable Cities Commission, then there are experts in the region to have this dialogue. So it means that every one of you can be involved.
And we will all benefit from the results and outcomes. Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any question or comment from the audience about the Cascade initiative? And no. So thank you. Thank you so much, and we're very happy for this initiative from CBSS and that you have invited UBC and we can cooperate in that. And then Toivo, and are you coming alone or with a group? Okay. Yeah.
Hello everyone. So, my name is Toivo Hurste and I come from the city of Espoo in Finland. And I'm the first vice chair of our youth council, and I am part of the youth conference here. Like many other people here who were just cheering for me. But yeah, so I've been listening keenly on this whole workshop, on every talk here, and I've gathered some ideas and what I think were really good and the most important ideas of this whole thing. So, I think the keyword here is collaboration. To succeed in these development goals, we need collaboration between the United Nations and the EU, between countries and cities, politicians and scientists, businesses and public services, the workforce and the youth. Because this is everyone's business. We live on the same planet, and I don't want to live on a broken planet. And there are many phenomena which cannot be fighting against, like the urbanization. So we shouldn't stop the urbanization, but we should enhance it, so we can make better cities and better living spaces for everyone. The same goes, it's not about SDG versus GDP. It's the Sustainable Development Goals are not something stalling the growth of our economics. They are enhancing it. We are getting green tech firms everywhere. Business is growing, clean tech in Finland is prospering, and same will cover the whole world. We will get new businesses, and some things we can't even imagine if we still keep working on our goals. And like Mr. Campbell said, let's implement. That's the most important thing. We can't just talk in conferences and nod our heads when someone else is talking. We need to do things. Cities need to do things, individuals need to do things. But cities are one of the most important players in this game. And I can proudly say I come from the city Espoo, which is the most sustainable city on whole Europe. And it's not an easy task. It's a collaboration between everyone in Espoo, the politicians, the civil servants, the individuals. And like I said before, that's an important key. But cities are not enough, we need everyone. And when I was listening to Maria, and she told about the hashtag first generation, I got excited because whoa, real excited, right, clearly. But yeah, because it's true that we are the generation that will see the years past the 2030. And that's why it's not just we are asking for you, the leaders of today, to build a new future. We want to be there with you, we, the leaders of the future, and not today. And many things that are not sustainable are traditions. Vehicles that use gasoline, coal, and things are traditions. They are technologies, but they are not used. So let's make a sustainable tradition. So when our children are growing, they know there's no other way than be sustainable. And we don't need these agendas because that's a common sense. But the essence in this work is the concrete tasks, like in Lithuania, those public transport reforms, like in Tartu, the building control and many new things. Those are what change things once again, not just big plans and big agendas. Real work which gets us real results. And when we are living in the northern hemisphere, especially in the Baltic and Nordic, it gets cold. And if global warming advances getting colder, it's funny how global warming is actually Nordic freezing. So heating is a clear thing to be taught about in the Nordic countries. How can we heat our buildings sustainably? How can we ensure that we can still be warm, but still not, and still be sustainable and warm at the same time, because of course sustainability gives us warmth, but we will freeze without our houses. And when we are doing this kind of things, monitoring is the key, because in every science we can't make conclusions if we don't have the data. So it's important for everyone to think about and collect the data from there. So just if you monitor your own spending and how much waste you make, that's something. Cities, they have their own, countries have their own. But once again, it's a group effort. And then we saw plans of getting carbon neutral. They are something we have been talking in Espoo too, and they are really ambitious plans. Carbon is one of the things that are driving our society, and I have been driving since the 1800s. But without ambition, you don't get results. You need ambition to get anything. And with that ambition, and with all of us, I hope that we can achieve our goals and get a better future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toivo, and thanks to the whole youth group. Thanks to all speakers, participants. It's been a great session. We have had good presentations, interesting discussions, and the youth has now showed us the way forward, and there's many projects and initiatives that they also presented and which will help us to move forward. So thank you so much, and lunch is available at the lounge now. Thank you.
Thank you.